As we all know, the world's biggest tournament, the FIFA World Cup, has finally started. And right now, billions of people across the planet are watching the exact same thing without actually seeing it. Football is not 11 people running around hoping something good happens. It is one of the most precisely engineered systems of human movement ever put on grass. Every player on that pitch has a position, a zone, a set of responsibilities that determines every run they make, every pass they attempt, and every piece of space they either occupy or deliberately leave empty. The formation you see displayed on a broadcast graphic before kickoff is a language. And like any language, once you learn it, you cannot unhear it. So let us start at the very back, the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper is the only player on the entire field who is legally allowed to use their hands, and that one rule makes this position unlike anything else in the sport. Their primary job is to prevent the ball from crossing the line between two posts that are 8 yards apart and 8 feet high. That sounds simple. It is not, because the modern goalkeeper has become something that would have been completely foreign to the keepers of 30 years ago. For most of football's history, the goalkeepers stayed on their line. They waited. They reacted to shots. They dealt with crosses. That was the entire job description, and it was considered enough. Then Manuel Neuer arrived at Bayern Munich and quietly dismantled that definition without asking anyone's permission. Neuer played so far off his goal line that he was functionally a sweeper, a defender in gloves, patrolling the space behind his back four and mopping up every through ball before it became a chance. Commentators started calling it the sweeper-keeper role, but that phrase undersells what it actually meant. Neuer did not just defend space, he started attacks. He received passes under pressure from his own center backs, turned, and distributed like a midfielder with the composure of someone who had done it 10,000 times. He made goalkeepers the first player in an attacking sequence, rather than the last line of a defensive one. The center backs. Directly in front of the goalkeeper, sitting at the heart of the defensive line, are the center backs. Most formations use 2 of them, though some use 3, and their job is to make certain that nothing threatening reaches the goalkeeper in the first place. They win aerial duels, make last-ditch tackles, organize the players in front of them, and read the movement of the opposition 2 or 3 passes before the danger actually materializes. But here's the thing that surprises most people when they first hear it. The best center backs in the history of the game are not the ones who make the most tackles. They are the ones who make the fewest. Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool became widely considered the best defender on the planet, not through brute aggression or constant intervention, but through positioning so precise, so intelligently calibrated, that danger almost never reached him in the first place. He had seasons where entire matches passed without him needing to make a single significant challenge because he had already taken away every option the opposition had before they could even attempt to use it. The fullbacks. On either side of the center backs, you find the fullbacks, the left back, and the right back, and no position in modern football has undergone a more radical transformation over the past 30 years than this one. For most of football's history, the fullback was the simplest job on the pitch. Stay wide, defend your flank, track the opposing winger, and do not venture forward unless the situation was absolutely clear and safe. Fullbacks were typically the least technical players in any squad. Nobody purchased a season ticket to watch the right back. Nobody wrote magazine covers about what the left back was doing. Then Pep Guardiola took over Barcelona in 2008, and the fullback became one of the most tactically important positions in the sport. Guardiola's fullbacks did not simply run up and down the touchline. Some of them rotated into central midfield when their team had possession, effectively becoming an extra midfielder and creating numerical advantages in areas of the pitch that defenders were never supposed to occupy. Dani Alves, under Guardiola, was not a right back in any traditional sense. He was an attacking weapon who happened to start from a defensive position. Philippe Lahm, João Cancelo, Trent Alexander-Arnold. These players redefined the role so completely that modern fullbacks are now among the most physically and technically demanding positions in professional football. A modern elite fullback covers somewhere between 12 and 13 kilometers in a single 90-minute match, which places them among the highest distance runners on any team. The defensive midfielder. The deepest sitting midfielder is the defensive midfielder, commonly referred to as the number 6 or the holding midfielder. And this might be the single most important position on the entire pitch that casual fans almost never think about. The defensive midfielder sits in the gap between the back line and the rest of the midfield, controlling the space where the opposition's most dangerous through balls are directed. They intercept passes that would otherwise split the defense open. They break up attacks before they become threats. They receive the ball from defenders under pressure and recycle possession back into something organized and productive. They also set the tempo of the entire game. When the 6 is calm and composed, everything in front of them flows. When the 6 has a bad game, the whole structure behind them is exposed, and the whole structure ahead of them loses its foundation. It is the load-bearing position of any midfield, and removing it from the equation is like pulling a central column out of a building and hoping the floors above hold up. The central midfielder. Ahead of the 6, you find the central midfielders, the number 8s, and these are the engines of the team in the most literal sense. The number 8 connects defense to attack. They carry the ball under pressure. They arrive late into the penalty area and score goals that nobody expected them to be in a position to score. They track back and defend when possession is lost. They press, they create, they link, they transition. The number 8 needs to do almost everything, at least adequately, which is why it produces some of the most complete footballers the game has ever seen. Kevin De Bruyne could spray a 60-yard diagonal pass onto the foot of a teammate and then score from distance in the same sequence of play. N'Golo Kanté could cover more ground than 2 average midfielders combined, while simultaneously being the most disruptive defensive presence on the pitch. Luka Modric could control the entire rhythm of a match with a single touch and a half-second of space. Same position, entirely different interpretations, all correct at the highest level. That is what makes central midfield so endlessly fascinating to study. The number 10. Just behind the forwards, there used to live the most celebrated player on any team, the number 10, the classic playmaker. The 10 operated in the space called the hole, the pocket between the opposition's midfield line and their defensive line, and the greatest number 10s in football history turned that narrow corridor of grass into something approaching an art form. Pelé, Maradona, Zidane, Ronaldinho, all of them were 10s. They saw passes that nobody else on the pitch had even imagined. They made decisions in fractions of a second that changed the outcome of entire tournaments. For decades, the number 10 was the most romanticized position in the sport. It was the shirt children asked for. It was the name on the back of every jersey sold in every country where football mattered. But here is the uncomfortable reality of the modern game. The classic number 10 is disappearing. The reason is tactical. Modern defensive systems press so aggressively, so collectively, and with such organized intensity that the space where playmakers used to wait for the ball has been systematically compressed and removed. The wingers. Out on either side of the pitch, ahead of the fullbacks, you have the wingers, left and right, and their job is to stretch the opposition defense as wide as possible, creating space in the central areas for everyone else to exploit. A traditional winger stayed on their natural side, right-footed on the right, left-footed on the left. They beat defenders on the outside, got to the byline, and delivered crosses into the penalty area for strikers to attack. It was a straightforward, physically demanding role, and it existed in that form for decades. The modern game turned that model completely upside down. Today, the majority of elite wingers play on their opposite flank, a left-footed player on the right side of the pitch, cutting inside onto their stronger foot and shooting at goal rather than crossing to a teammate. This is the inverted winger, and it is one of the single most significant tactical developments in 21st century football. Mohamed Salah on the right side at Liverpool, Arjen Robben doing the same at Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, Lionel Messi operating from the right throughout his peak years at Barcelona, the striker. At the very top of the formation, you find the striker, the number 9, the goal scorer, the name that every casual fan knows even if they know nothing else about the sport. The striker's job is the most straightforward position in football, and simultaneously the most brutal one. Score goals. That is the job. Everything else is secondary to that single function. Robert Lewandowski scored over 600 career goals by mastering an area of the pitch no larger than a living room, the space between the last defender and the goalkeeper, and understanding exactly when to arrive in it and how to finish when he got there. Erling Haaland can vanish entirely from a match for 89 minutes, barely touch the ball, receive one chance, and convert it with the composure of someone who has forgotten how to miss. The best strikers in history have never needed 10 opportunities. They need one moment, and they make it count. And then comes the role that broke the entire system, the false 9. But just as the entire structure seems to make perfect sense, along comes a position that dismantles all of it. The false 9 is a striker who does not behave like a striker. Instead of holding a high position in the center, drawing defenders deep and providing a target for the midfield to aim at, the false 9 drops back into the space between the opposition midfield and defense, dragging the center backs out of position with them. This creates two problems for the defending team simultaneously. If the center backs follow the false 9, they leave space behind them that the midfielders running forward can exploit. If they stay in position and ignore the false 9, that player receives the ball in space with time to create. Guardiola weaponized this idea in 2009 when he moved Lionel Messi into the false 9 role for Barcelona's match against Real Madrid. Barcelona won 6-2, and the defending team had no comprehensible answer because nobody was where they were supposed to be. The space that a striker was meant to occupy was empty. The player who should have been dangerous in that space was 30 yards further back, creating danger from somewhere nobody had prepared to defend. And that philosophy is what brings us to the real point of everything you have just watched. Once you understand that the positions are a starting point rather than a permanent assignment, the game transforms in front of you. You stop watching the ball and start watching the space around it